Hello, it's Sia with Black Petal Gardening, and I just finished watering. It is in the evening, and I know there's thoughts on the best time to water being in the morning, and make sure you don't water from the top down, etc., etc. Well, the way I'm looking at it is, you have no choice when the rain comes, so I'm going to pretend I'm rain. But that's not actually the point of this video. No, instead, we are looking at the mess that is both the tomato area, and I think we can all agree that this is ridiculous, and our squash bed. Now, the squash bed is not quite as concerning as the tomato bed, but it's definitely gotten unruly over the last few days. I've kind of just watched it a little bit to see how things were going to progress, and it has definitely spread quite a bit. And so what I need to do tomorrow is get out here and do some serious trimming back. I have some stuff that close to being ready to harvest or is ready to harvest, so that'll be part of the process. But I am going to be making some hard decisions about stuff and trimming this like really far back. So if it means I lose some things, it means I lose some things. And I'm actually very okay with that, simply because we have a lot of at least our summer squash still in the wings, waiting for us to eat them. The tomatoes. Again, I really did try to put things in place to keep this somewhat organized, but I was on 100% unprepared for just how vigorous the plants were going to be, how big they were going to get. I didn't really have a lot of understanding of what their growth pattern was going to be. Some of that is the varieties that I chose. The packets didn't mention determinate, indeterminate, or anything like that, which I could have looked up. So, that's not totally not my fault or anything like that. I was also woefully unprepared with my attempts to keep it in line. What I put in place was not adequate. So the end result is I do have a lot of greenery. I do have a lot of actual fruit that is waiting to or is in the process of maturing and ripening. But the way it is grown has made it, let me scoot around here, extremely difficult to be able to harvest, especially over in this area. And some of that was because I planted two types of cherry tomatoes when I wasn't clear on being a type of cherry tomato, as well as a grape tomato. Both of those have very vigorous growing patterns, and they have absolutely taken over this area. So what does that mean? It means I am going to have to come in here and do some trimming, and it does mean I'm going to lose some fruit, especially if I decide to be very aggressive with that trimming process. As I trim, there's a great chance that I will either accidentally cut or accidentally break other vines that I'm not intending to. So I am going into this with the full knowledge that the results of this trimming could be catastrophic. I'm not trying to be overly dramatic, but just with the mess that, we can all clearly see here, it's gonna be a little bit of a hack and slash just to try and make any kind of sense out of a lot of these vines. And that it is what it is. I think the positive is that there are a lot of indeterminate plants here, and so with that, even though I'm trimming stuff back, there's still the opportunity for growth, and even up till the first frost, and that's not until like the first week of November. So depending on how aggressive I am and how much of the plant is trimmed away, there could still be issues with shock and things like that. But it's one of those. I personally feel it's unavoidable. If I leave it like this, it's just going to get more and more unruly. It's going to be that much more difficult for me to be able to even get to the stuff that has ripened enough for me to harvest it, even if it's not 100% ripe. And it just makes sense. And if things go south after I do these changes, I'm gonna have to chalk that up to a very harsh lesson and have to do much better next year. I mean, I already have plans for changes that I'm gonna make next year, uh, but yeah, sometimes the best learned lessons are the hard ones. But I am prepared for that. And like I said, that is going to be something that we do tomorrow. For you, it'll only be a little bit of a blip. But for me, it'll be the whole next day because I'm definitely not up to doing that today. Yeah, I need a I need a fresh day to get that done. So we will see you in just a second, and you can come along with me as I make decisions on what I'm going to cut, how I'm going to cut, and I'll be keeping a finger crossed that I don't make any changes that I am not fully prepared to own. All right, as promised, I am going to do some tomato plant trimming. I will put out there that this is going to be not very professional, first of all, and not necessarily a lot of particular skill. It's absolutely going to be by feel, and we'll see just kind of how it goes. The other issue is it is a very warm day, and if you've seen any of my previous videos, you know that I tend to have issues with my phone dying, so because of the heat. So we'll see how long this lasts and go from there. The other issue I have is the fact that my little clippers here, I cannot find the sharpener that I purchased. So the blades are not necessarily as sharp as I'd like them to be. Okay, so here is the mess in its entirety. Well, for the most part. My biggest area of concern right now is kind of this, because it feels like it's really pulling everything down. And so I kind of hate to just chop and go, but I think even though I've got all of this future stuff here, I think that's just how I'm gonna to go about it. Oops, you can hear the sound of things falling. So here's our first victim. Now, I'm pretty sure that I can just go and keep those on a counter or something. Maybe even outside somewhere safe, and they will mature, at least some of the bigger ones, and still get all nice and red, but I am not 100% sure about that, so that'll be a secondary part of this process. So right now I'm mostly trying to clear out this stuff that's hitting the ground. Some of this I've already, trimmed, and so it's just reinforcing trims, but okay, that one's a big one. And like I said, I hate to do this because, again, there's a lot of growth here. There's a lot of opportunity for tomatoes and whatnot. But I just don't feel like it's going to be in the best interest of me or the plants themselves the way they're currently growing. So here's what I've trimmed so far. Okay. Let's see here. This is just so intertwined, and I am still trying to be so careful. I think I'm just gonna go for it. That was a big one. And part of the problem is I've got these things that I've put in place in my attempt to help stabilize, and I think they're working against me a little bit at this point. Oh, look at that. It's hard to see. But again, I'm hoping that there's still an opportunity to salvage some of this. This guy is, oh man, listen to that sound and look at this. This is quite a big one. Oh, look at this. Do I sound like I'm in pain? I am in a little bit of pain about this. Oops, I just stepped on a bunch. Okay, I made a pretty big cut up here, and I'm still trying to figure out exactly what that's connected to. Okay, here we go. Oof. Okay. Let's see. So just keep. Oh, there's a lot right there, but again, I just can't manage this. So I put myself in this position. I mean, there's nobody to blame but myself for this drastic step that I'm taking. So, I kind of have to suck it up, buttercup situation and do what I can. And again, make better choices next year. Okay. Well, my goal right now is to mostly affect only the Juliet and the black strawberry tomatoes, because they're the cherry, and the grape tomatoes and the sun gold. Anything with a larger tomato, at least for right now, I don't want to mess with. And I'm hoping with a little less weight, I can readjust some of these things, and maybe that'll help prop some of the bigger ones up. We'll just kind of have to see. At this point, once I've completed my trim job, where we're at. So, oh, I keep stepping on tomatoes. But again, I am also hoping that the fact that these are indeterminate means we will still see additional growth even after I've made some pretty significant cuts. So there is the possibility that it'll still recover, and though I've lost some initial stuff, I will be able to recoup. Okay, well, that's where we look right now. I really need to do something over in this area for these tomatoes that have clearly lost their support when this became too heavy to, oh, dang it, to hold. And see, that's an issue. It just split this, so I don't know if we'll be able to ripen those, but that was one of those unintended consequences. Yeah, so it's very important to have a extremely sturdy, very strong structure available when you're doing tomatoes, especially indeterminates, and especially ones that are going to have some size to them, whether that's the size of the tomato themselves or the size of the plant. Otherwise, you're going to run into some unfortunate issues. So, okay, I think we are kind of at a stopping point right here, and I am going to do some off-camera attempts at fixing things, and we'll come back and kind of see where we land at that point. All right, so we're back. Now, if you're looking at this and you're thinking, hey, Sia, hate to tell you this, but it doesn't look too much different. Worry not. Your powers of perception are 100% on track. I essentially got a little worried that if I tried to adjust anything, I was going to see more damage, especially to the larger branch items. I did try to get this pole right here back up. It didn't work. Things are too heavy. They're too entwined in the twine that I had already put out. And I was just very, very concerned that jostling that around more would result in, the loss of even more big branches of things. Now, that doesn't mean that we won't end up in that particular position anyway, because these are going to continue to grow, continue to get heavy, especially as they continue to put more fruit on. So I might just be delaying the inevitable, but the way I'm looking at it is I did do some significant cuts over in this area, and I think that is helpful. There are, of course, just tons of suckers, tons of leaders and stuff like that. So assuming that the plants themselves don't react, so negatively to such a aggressive cut that they just end up dying off, there's an excellent chance that it'll just kind of grow back. So, you might say, oh, well, then that was a bunch of work for nothing. But I do think how it was coming down, it was just not manageable. And if I have to come back out here and do another trim to try and redistribute the weight, or at least alleviate some of the weight, hopefully make it a little bit more even, or whatever the case may be, then that's what I'll do. I do have a lot of concerns about this area right over here. Let's see if we can zoom in just a smidge, maybe a smidge more. As you can see, we do have some larger tomatoes that have formed and are forming. And so with that comes additional weight, and we'll just have to see. Yeah. So, I find it hard to believe that anybody else out there is dealing with a situation quite like this. Not because I feel super special and unique, but just because it feels like the mistake that I made is really obvious and easy to avoid. But if you are in a similar situation, sometimes you just got to make those hard decisions in an effort to save the overall crop, even if it means that you'll potentially lose some, maybe even a significant amount of what you currently have. But again, what I made cuts on, except for the one that I inadvertently broke, were the grape slash Roma tomato types and our cherry tomato types, both of which I believe are indeterminate, so they should, if they survive this, continue to grow until we hit a cold snap. Some of these other ones, they may also be indeterminate. Again, as I mentioned, at least on the seed packet, a lot of these ones that I got, I think from like Baker's Creek, it didn't say one way or another. But if they are determinate, then what I have is what I have, and I don't want to jeopardize that. If they're indeterminate, then of course there's potential for additional growth and additional fruiting. But that I'm just going to have to see how it plays out. I wish I wasn't in this position. I wish I had done a better job at the beginning. And really, I had thought I did an okay job, but clearly the tools that I used for my staking, etc., they were not up to the job. And so now I know that for next year. Now we can come over here and see. Here's the pile of what was pulled off. You will notice there are still some tomatoes on there. What I did was I tried to kind of guesstimate what seemed like it was better formed. because there were clearly some things that were more formed and more mature, and maybe just a little bit at the point a little bit before they were going to start to blush. And so I thought those might have a better chance at getting to the blush and maturing stage. So those are the ones I kept. These ones will go into the yard debris. Here's the volume that I plucked from the ground and from these trimmed things. So, it's not insignificant. Not at all. So I am absolutely hoping that these will, oops, I kind of got off track there, that these will continue in the ripening process. If they don't, obviously there's some that have blush already, so I know that those are on the way. But for the ones that are completely green, if they don't, I am going to swallow the bitter pill of knowing that I have lost out on that volume, but I still feel like it was an important step to take. So I am prepared to, take that loss. If, luck is with me and I am able to get all of these to mature, amazing. That will be kind of the best of both worlds. I was able to trim things down to make them a little bit more manageable, and yet still save a fair number of tomatoes. You may have noticed we did a little bit of a jump. That's because my phone died because of the heat. And what I did is I grabbed the container that those saved green tomatoes were in, and I put them over on our back porch so that they're in the shade. They do get a little bit of light. I don't want to cook them, but I'm hoping just putting them out leaving them outside, that will help them with the ripening process. Now, while we're over here, and until my phone dies again, we can kind of try and see what we have volume-wise for the tomatoes. We've got some decent sized things. I'm really curious about the Brad's Atomic, which is what I'm pretty sure that these right there are. Most of these seem to be the Black Beauty. I'm pretty sure we have some of the Annan Noir down here and down in here. And then, of course, we've got the Black Strawberry, the Sun Golds, and then the Juliets, which are over in here. So, if this ends up being a catastrophic choice, it's one that I'll live with. I'll learn from it. Next year will be better. If it works out, great, it works out. Honestly, if this does all die off and I need to clear it, maybe I'll make some additional room for the big boys. We'll just move on and adapt, and see what we can do to keep things going. But I am going to stay positive and hope for the best. And of course, have you guys continue to come along with us with this crazy process called gardening. Hopefully you can learn from my mistakes, and hopefully I learn from my mistakes. But I do appreciate you coming along. If you have any feedback, things that I could still do, ways that I can avoid losing the bulk of what we have here, but still make it better for the tomatoes that we are keeping, please drop those into the comments. Even if you want to tell me, oh my God, you're an idiot, you should have known better, that's fair. Yeah, I'll take it with a grain of salt, but I can't necessarily conclude otherwise. So anyway, I do appreciate you coming along. I know this was a little bit longer of a video, considering what it was for, but I do appreciate all of the time everybody spends when they come and take a look at some of our videos. Please consider giving us a like, of course subscribing, and we'd love to have you share if you feel that there's folks that would enjoy watching us kind of stumble along in our journey. All right, it is very hot and I'm actually on my lunch break, so I need to get back to work. And with that in mind, I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye.